Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and discovering that cash no longer exists. No coins rattling in your pocket, no bills tucked away in your wallet. Every single dollar you own is now just a number, frozen behind a glowing screen. Before we dive deep into this, do me a solid and tap that subscribe button. Show some love, like and share this video, and make sure you watch until the very end. Because what you're about to discover could be a lot closer to reality than you think. This isn't science fiction, it's a preview, and it's already happening, quietly, piece by piece, in ways most people haven't even noticed. At first, it sounds super convenient, right? No more bulky wallets, no more fumbling for exact change, no more waiting in long lines. Just scan, tap, and you're done. Simple. But what if I told you that this convenience comes with a hidden cost? A cost far greater than money itself. Because in a world where cash disappears, every single transaction becomes traceable. Every purchase you make becomes a piece of data. And data becomes control. Picture this. You walk into your favorite cafe, ready for your morning coffee. It's $4.50. You tap your phone to pay, but instead of the usual confirmation, a message pops up. Transaction declined. Account flagged for unusual behavior. You're confused, you check your balance, it's full. But the system doesn't care. Somewhere, an algorithm has decided your spending pattern is out of line. Maybe you bought something it deemed suspicious. Maybe you said something online that triggered a digital warning. Or maybe, just maybe, the system decided it no longer trusts you. Now, that might sound dramatic, but look closer. The foundations for this future are already being built. Central banks all over the world are developing central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. These are digital versions of national money that are fully programmable. What does that mean? It means governments could, in theory, track, limit, or even put an expiration date on your money. Imagine receiving your paycheck with a timer attached, spend within 30 days, or it disappears. Or being told that certain funds can only be used for specific purchases, like healthy food only, or no travel this month. This isn't some far-off hypothetical. Pilot programs are being tested right now in countries like China, India, and even here in the US. We're told it's all about efficiency, security, and modernization. But beneath those shiny words lies a truth that's a bit uncomfortable to consider. When money becomes code, the power to rewrite that code determines who can live freely and who cannot. Think about what cash really represents. It's freedom in your hand. It's anonymous, untraceable, and universally accepted. You can give $1 to a stranger in need, buy something privately, or travel across borders without leaving a digital footprint. Cash is independence, physical proof that your money is truly yours. But once cash disappears, the very idea of ownership transforms. Your balance isn't in your pocket anymore. It's just a line in a database. And whoever controls that database controls you. The most chilling part? You wouldn't even realize when it started. Because big changes like this never happen overnight. They creep in, disguised as innovation, wrapped in convenience, and sold to us as progress. First, you see more cashless stores. Then come digital ID systems. Then, social credit scores get linked to your spending habits. And finally, when everyone is on board, cash just quietly fades into history. Look at Sweden, where over 90% of all payments are already digital. In China, cash is becoming nearly obsolete. And in the US, contactless payments skyrocketed after 2020, conditioning millions of youth to live in a tap-to-survive economy. We didn't question it because it felt so easy. But that's how control often begins, not with force, but with comfort. Now imagine this timeline. Day 1, cash officially disappears. Day 2, a major cyber attack hits the financial network. Day 3, your digital wallet is frozen for security reasons. You call the bank, they apologize, they promise to review your case. But in the meantime, your groceries are rotting, your rent is overdue, and your entire life, once powered by convenience, is now trapped behind a line of code. This isn't a video about doom and gloom. It's a wake-up call. Because the truth is, this isn't just about currency. It's about control. Who gets to decide what your money can do? Who gets to see where every penny goes? And most importantly, what happens when the system decides you don't belong? We live in an age where financial surveillance is already normal. Every time you swipe your card, your bank knows what you buy. Every online purchase feeds algorithms that predict your behavior. Every free app on your phone is likely selling your spending data to corporations who want to shape your desires. Now, imagine that entire system, upgraded, centralized, and made mandatory for everyone. That's the world without cash. That's the world we are walking toward, one digital step at a time. So, as we continue this journey through the future of money, keep this question in your mind. When the day comes that cash finally disappears, will you still be free? Or will freedom itself be something you can no longer afford? And trust me, what you'll see next will make you question every transaction you've ever made. So stick with me to the end, because the deeper we go, the clearer it becomes. The disappearance of cash isn't just an economic shift. If you think the disappearance of cash will happen all at once, like a sudden storm, you're mistaken. It's not a storm. It's a quiet, calculated plan unfolding right before our eyes. Governments call it modernization. Corporations call it innovation. But behind the flashy tech ads and buzzwords lies something else entirely. A blueprint for total financial control. Let's step back and ask a simple question. Why do the world's most powerful institutions want a cashless society so badly? It's not just about making things more convenient for you. It's about visibility. Cash is invisible. You can't track a crumpled $10 bill as it passes from one hand to another. But digital money? That's different. It's a detailed map of human behavior, a record of who you are, what you do, and even what you believe. And in a world obsessed with data, that map is worth more than gold. Right now, central banks, payment processors, and tech giants are quietly building the infrastructure of this cashless future, layer by layer. It starts innocently enough with things we all use: mobile payments, contactless cards, online banking. The next step is integration. Digital IDs, facial recognition, biometric wallets. And finally, comes the consolidation. Every single financial action, buying, saving, donating, investing, all happening inside one central, trackable ecosystem. If this sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, just look around. In China, the digital yuan already allows authorities to trace every single transaction. There's no anonymity, no escape. In Nigeria, the government tried to push its naira by placing strict withdrawal limits on cash, essentially forcing citizens to comply. In Sweden, even vendors on the street now accept digital payments because cash has become nearly extinct. And what about here? In the United States, the groundwork is being laid under the banner of financial inclusion. It sounds compassionate, doesn't it? But it hides a strategic truth. Once everyone is inside the system, no one can opt out. Let's be clear about who benefits. Banks benefit because a cashless world keeps every single cent within their ecosystem, generating fees and data. Governments benefit because every digital transaction is visible, meaning perfect surveillance. No tax evasion, no underground economy, no dissent without a digital trace. And the tech companies? They become the new middlemen of our entire existence, monetizing every click, every purchase, every digital breath we take. Picture this as a triangle of power. Governments set the rules. Banks hold the money. Tech giants control the interface we use to access it. Together, they don't just manage money, they manage people. And when you're trapped inside their triangle, you don't own your freedom, you rent it. Now you might be thinking, but they can't just make cash illegal overnight. And you're right. That's not how this kind of control works. It doesn't arrive with force. It arrives with persuasion. They'll tell you cash is dirty, that it spreads disease. They'll say it's inefficient, that digital is faster. They'll insist it's outdated, that you need to join the future. And bit by bit, your convenience becomes their control. Then comes the final, most powerful phrase, for your safety. Think about it. Every major shift in modern surveillance, cameras on every corner, airport security checks, phone tracking, it all began for your safety. And now, financial tracking is joining that list. A world without cash is a world where your money behaves like software. It can be updated, restricted, paused, or even erased with a single keystroke. What happens when you can't buy a book because its content is considered misinformation? Or when your digital wallet blocks a donation to a cause that's been deemed unapproved? What happens when spending outside your assigned carbon-friendly quota results in higher taxes or your transactions being limited? These aren't wild fantasies. These are features being actively discussed in economic policy circles today. In 2022, a report from the Bank for International Settlements openly proposed programmable, central bank digital currencies, currency that could be restricted to specific purposes. Imagine getting a government stimulus payment that only works at certain stores or can only be spent on approved goods. That's not financial aid, that's financial obedience. The argument, of course, is that this level of control will make us all safer. If all money is digital, crime will vanish, tax evasion will disappear, fraud will become impossible. But the question is, at what cost? Because when you trade privacy for security, you almost always end up losing both. A hacker doesn't need to break into a bank vault anymore, they just need to infiltrate a network. And when your entire life savings exist only as lines of code, a single glitch, a data breach, or a political decision could delete it all in seconds. Now, let's talk about the illusion of independence. Digital wallets like PayPal, Venmo, or Apple Pay feel empowering, don't they? But they aren't banks. They are corporations with their own terms of service, policies that can allow them to ban, suspend, or freeze your access to your own money without warning. You might think your balance is safe, but it's not truly in your control. Just ask the thousands of people who've had their accounts suddenly put under review. Their money still existed, it just wasn't available for them. And here's the final twist. Every time you make a cashless transaction, you are feeding the very machine that is building this system. The more you tap and swipe, the more you train it. Every purchase teaches the algorithm your habits. What time you buy coffee, where you go on weekends, what products tempt you the most. It learns you. It predicts you. And eventually, it owns you. If you've watched this far, it's not by accident. It's because you feel it too, don't you? That slight unease when you realize your entire financial life depends on invisible systems you can't touch or control. That quiet whisper of doubt in the back of your mind that asks, what if the system just decides to shut me off? That isn't paranoia, that's foresight. So the next time someone tells you that a cashless society is inevitable, remember this. Inevitable is the language used by those who profit from your compliance. Nothing is inevitable, except for the consequences of our silence. We have built a civilization that runs on transactions, on digital pulses that now define our survival. And the ones who control those pulses are learning just how much freedom you're willing to trade for a little bit of comfort. Because the day cash finally disappears is the day freedom becomes a subscription service. Every time you buy a cup of coffee, swipe for a ride, or tap your phone for lunch, you're doing more than just spending money. You're feeding the machine. And that machine doesn't just take your payment, it takes a piece of you. Your habits, your choices, your weaknesses, all of it harvested, analyzed, and sold. Because in the cashless economy, you are the product. Let's pull back the digital curtain. When cash disappears, every single transaction becomes a data point. Where you were, what you bought, what time, what day, even the emotion you might have felt when you spent that money. This information doesn't just vanish. It travels to banks, apps, payment processors, advertisers, and data brokers. Each one takes a slice of your financial DNA. There are entire industries that exist for one purpose: to trade your spending behavior. They know when you're about to move cities. They can guess when you're thinking of breaking up with someone. They can even predict when you might get sick, all based on what you've been buying. And they sell this intimate knowledge to corporations, political campaigns, and anyone willing to pay the price. In this cashless age, your privacy isn't stolen. It's sold. By you, often without you even realizing it. Think about it. When was the last time you actually read the fine print of an app's terms and conditions? Every time you click, I agree, you're handing over a silent permission slip for surveillance. You're giving your consent, not just for convenience, but for capture. And that capture turns into prediction. Prediction becomes manipulation. And manipulation becomes profit. In this new world, data is the new currency, and you're minting it with every single click. That morning coffee purchase trains an AI to predict how often you'll splurge on a treat. Your streaming subscription data trains an algorithm to sell you emotional ads at 2 a.m. Your grocery delivery history teaches companies what comfort foods to push when you're feeling down. This isn't just advertising anymore. This is psychological engineering. In the 20th century, Oil was the world's most valuable resource. In the 21st, it's information, and the cashless system is the pipeline. Every tap, every scan, every secure payment you make pumps more data into servers all across the globe. And just like oil, this data is refined, processed into targeted ads, financial scores, risk profiles, and detailed consumer models. It fuels an empire that profits from your predictability. Now picture this. You walk into a store, you don't even pull out your phone. Facial recognition cameras identify you instantly. An AI assistant recommends products you've been thinking about but never said out loud. Your payment processes automatically, linked to your biometric ID. Convenient? Maybe. But every step, every blink, every purchase becomes another line in your digital file, the file that knows you better than you know yourself. Companies call this personalization. Governments call it efficiency. But underneath those friendly words lies the cold reality of a behavioral marketplace, where your mind is the merchandise. Cash once protected you from this. Cash was private, untraceable, human. Now, even your desires have a price tag. In 2023, global data broker revenues surpassed $500 billion, an economy built entirely on analyzing human behavior. And it's only growing. By 2030, some analysts predict that your personal data could be worth more than your actual savings account. Think about that for a moment. The system doesn't need to steal your wallet anymore. It already owns the map to your emotions. This isn't just about what you buy. It's about control through behavior prediction. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to manage. Algorithms learn how to nudge you, when to spend, when to save, when to panic. Entire industries depend on your reactions. Fear drives the insurance market. Desire drives advertising. Comfort drives compliance. In this invisible economy, you're not the customer, you're the fuel. And the most profitable outcome isn't your happiness, it's your dependence. A dependent population spends more, questions less, and obeys faster. And what better way to ensure that dependence than to make money itself digital, trackable, and conditional? Now imagine this data empire merging with AI-driven finance. An algorithm could decide your creditworthiness based on your search history, your tone on social media, or even the speed of your typing. A world where getting a bank loan depends not on your income, but on your digital reputation. One misinterpreted post, one mistaken click, and you could be flagged as high risk. No appeal, no human to talk to, just code. We've already seen glimpses of this. Social media posts have been used to deny loans. Digital payment companies have frozen accounts for vague policy violations. Insurance firms have adjusted premiums based on online behavior. All of it legal, all data-driven, and all are warning signs of a future where money is no longer earned. It's permitted. If cash vanishes, so does the last refuge of human privacy. You can't hide from an algorithm. You can't reason with code. And once every dollar you earn is digital, every aspect of your life becomes a financial input, ready to be scored, sold, or silenced. So the next time you pay with a tap, ask yourself, who's really getting paid? The merchant or the machine? Because behind the glow of every digital transaction is a shadow, a silent observer collecting your secrets one swipe at a time. And once the cash is gone, there will be no shadows left to hide in. Only light. Blinding, total, unescapable light. When money goes digital, it stops being yours. It becomes a permission slip, a pass you're allowed to use only if you play by the rules. And that's where the next great global conflict begins. Not with bombs or armies, but with access. Access to the system. Access to your own life. It's the future, one that's being built quietly while most of us are busy scrolling. Picture two worlds, one where money is physical. It's messy, unpredictable, and almost impossible to trace. And another where it's digital, efficient, programmable, and perfectly clean. Which one do you think a government prefers? In the digital world, the state doesn't need to chase you. It doesn't need police raids or tax audits. It can enforce obedience with a single command: freeze account. Suddenly, your rent payment fails, your grocery card declines, your digital wallet just says, access restricted. You haven't been arrested, you haven't been charged with a crime, but you've been financially erased. This is the quiet power of a cashless system. No riots, no public outcry, just silence, the kind that falls when people can no longer afford to speak their minds. We've already seen glimpses of this. In 2022, entire groups of citizens in multiple countries had their bank accounts frozen for participating in protests. There was no warning, no trial, just a digital lockout. A decade ago, that would have sounded like a dystopian movie plot. Today, it's simply called policy enforcement. Now, imagine that power scaled globally, built into every single transaction you make. And it's not just controlled by governments, but by corporations too. That's where the real war begins. Because when digital currency merges with corporate data, the entire economy becomes a weapon. Tech giants like Apple, Google, and Meta already sit on mountains of your data. Your preferences, your contacts, your location history. Banks hold the secrets to your financial behavior. Governments hold your identity. Now, combine all of that, and you get the perfect surveillance grid. A system where your money, your identity, and your data all fuse into one single profile, the digital you. At first, it seems harmless. Your new digital ID makes payments faster, logins smoother, and your taxes are filed automatically. But underneath this convenience lies a structure of dependence so deep, most people won't even notice it forming. Your job, your healthcare, even your citizenship, all tied to your digital presence. And once that happens, dissent becomes incredibly expensive. Let's play this out. Imagine you speak out against a new policy online. Your post gets flagged, your trust score drops. Suddenly, your access to certain transactions, like booking a flight, applying for a loan, or even receiving social benefits, gets temporarily limited. Nobody comes to your door. There are no flashing headlines, just quiet, digital exclusion. This isn't science fiction. It's already being tested in pilot programs under the banner of social responsibility. The logic is seductive. Reward good behavior, discourage bad behavior. But who gets to define what good means? Who writes the code that decides what's allowed and what isn't? And governments aren't the only players in this game. Private corporations have learned that control over transactions means control over thought. If they can limit what you buy, they can influence how you live. If they can monitor what you sell, they can predict your next move. In a world without cash, every single move leaves a digital trail. The great irony is that people will likely embrace this new order willingly, not through fear, but through comfort. Digital IDs that promise to keep you safe. Smart cities that streamline your life. A universal basic income paid directly to your phone, with the tiny condition that it can't be withdrawn as cash, only spent where the system approves. Step by step, freedom becomes a subscription service. In this new war, there are no soldiers, only users. No tanks, only terms of service. The battlefield isn't land or sea, it's data. And the weapons? They are lines of code, policy updates, and sheer convenience. For the first time in human history, control doesn't require chains. It just requires your consent. The most powerful systems don't need to take your freedom. They just need to convince you to trade it away. Now, let's look at the other side, the resistance. There are people fighting back quietly. Developers are building decentralized systems. Privacy advocates are sounding the alarm about digital overreach. Some communities are even returning to barter, gold, or crypto. But for every effort to escape, the system evolves. You'll hear governments talking about regulating crypto. Banks will warn you against unverified transactions. It's always framed as protection. Protection from crime, from fraud, from instability. But what they're really protecting is their monopoly. Because whoever controls the medium of exchange controls the very meaning of freedom. And when every transaction has to pass through their system, rebellion isn't just impossible, it becomes unprofitable. You see, the real war for control won't be fought out in the open. It'll happen in code, in policy drafts, and in quiet partnerships between central banks and tech giants. It won't be about who has the most guns, but who writes the algorithm that decides what money really means. And the casualties? They won't fall on any battlefield. They'll just be sitting in their apartments, staring at a frozen bank account, wondering how the world changed so drastically while they were busy clicking agree. It's easy to think, that'll never happen here. But every step we take toward a cashless society makes it easier. Every app that replaces your wallet, every card that replaces your cash, every biometric scan that replaces your signature. Each one is a small surrender, a trade of a little bit of freedom for a little bit of frictionless living. The war for control isn't coming. It's already here. You just haven't felt it yet, because it's being fought with your comfort, not your fear. And the side that wins won't be the one that's the strongest, but the one you never even realized you were fighting against. It begins like any other morning. The sky is a flat, familiar gray. The city hums with the sound of a million tiny routines. People wake up, they scroll, they start their day, coffee, commute, another day plugging into the machine. But then something small happens. So small you might miss it. A glitch. You tap your card to pay for your morning coffee. The screen freezes. Network error. Try again. Okay, no big deal, right? It happens. You try again. Nothing. You pull out your phone. Your banking app won't load. A notification pops up. We're experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. You look around. It's not just you. Everyone's phones are glitching. No one's card is working. No payments are going through. A nervous energy starts to ripple through the coffee shop. Soon, gas stations close. Supermarkets can't process any purchases. It's not just your city, it's everywhere. Within hours, the hum of the city is replaced by the growing murmur of panic. Digital life has stopped. No one can buy, sell, or move money. And in that moment, the world realizes a horrifying truth. A cashless society has no backup plan. Think about it for a second. Cash never crashes. It doesn't glitch. It doesn't need electricity or a Wi-Fi signal. But when every single cent you own is just a string of code, the entire world runs on blind trust. Trust in servers you'll never see, algorithms you don't understand, and invisible networks that connect everything. One major failure, one hack, one solar flare, one widespread blackout, and that trust evaporates in an instant. And we've already had previews of this. In 2021, a massive outage hit Visa and MasterCard, halting millions of payments across Europe. In 2022, a cyber attack took down the Colonial Pipeline, disrupting fuel supplies across the United States. And just last year, a major bank system failure locked customers out of their own accounts for days on end. Each time, the world kind of shrugged, called it an inconvenience, and moved on. But what happens when it's not just one bank or one payment processor? What happens when every financial institution, every digital wallet, every single payment system is interconnected, and one failure triggers a domino effect that brings down the rest? This is the Achilles heel of the cashless dream: total, absolute dependence. Dependence on servers that can crash, dependence on companies that can be hacked, and dependence on power grids that can and do fail. In this kind of future, electricity isn't just about keeping the lights on, it's about your very existence. Now picture this scenario, and I'm not talking about a movie plot, I'm talking about a plausible reality. A coordinated cyber attack targets the global financial network. Key data centers go offline. Digital wallets are frozen solid. Central banks scramble to reboot the system, but it's too late. Within hours, billions of people lose access to their money. Within a few days, food and medical supplies start to dwindle. Within a week, chaos erupts. Not because the world ran out of money, but because it ran out of access to it. This isn't just paranoia. This is a vulnerability that cybersecurity experts have been quietly screaming about for years. The more centralized a system becomes, the bigger the risk. And the new cashless infrastructure, built in the name of efficiency, is more centralized than anything we have ever created. Every transaction, every cent you spend, passes through the same digital arteries: the banks, the processors, the data centers. You take one of them down, and the system bleeds. You take several of them down, and the system flatlines. Now imagine what happens next. The blackout lasts longer than anyone expected. No one can buy or sell anything. Hospitals can't process insurance payments. Truckers can't refuel their rigs. The supply chain, that invisible bloodstream of modern civilization, starts to suffocate. Within 48 hours, the price of whatever food is left on the shelves skyrockets. Within 72 hours, desperation begins to set in. Because in a world without cash, your very survival depends on connectivity. And when that connection is severed, the illusion of civilization dies right along with it. People start to barter. Cigarettes, canned food, jewelry, things that were once considered trivial suddenly regain immense value because they're physical, they're real. Ironically, the very thing the world was so eager to abandon, tangible exchange, becomes the only form of freedom left, And amidst all this chaos, a terrifying realization spreads like a virus. Digital money doesn't actually belong to you. It belongs to whoever runs the system. You don't hold it, you're granted access to it. You don't own it, you're just allowed to use it. And when that permission is revoked, your entire financial life vanishes into thin air. So, let's say the blackout finally ends. The servers reboot. The system stutters back to life. But something has changed. The big tech companies and banks promise new safeguards. Governments rush to launch digital stability acts. They stand on podiums and declare, "This can never happen again." But those safeguards always come at a price. Tighter rules, more control, less freedom, mandatory digital ID verification for all wallets, algorithmic monitoring of all your transactions for your security, automatic spending limits to prevent panic buying. Every crisis becomes an excuse to tighten the digital leash. Every outage becomes an opportunity for them to rewrite the rules of the game. And the people, desperate for a return to normalcy and safety, will accept it all. Because fear has always been the key that opens the door to control. By the next year, this new normal feels unshakable. Cash is a relic. Privacy is a memory. A whole generation grows up never having touched physical money, only screens. Their entire lives, their work, their identity, their reputation, are all bound to the same digital chain. And when something inevitably goes wrong again, there's no one left to blame but the system itself. And that's the ultimate irony in all of this. The cashless world, a world built for perfect efficiency, will eventually collapse under the weight of its own perfection. The tighter the network becomes, the more fragile it is. The more dependent we all become, the easier it is to break us. Humanity, once obsessed with building faster, safer systems, will end up enslaved to them. Not because the machines rebelled, but because people simply stopped asking questions. You see, the disappearance of cash isn't just a technological shift. It's a profound shift in philosophy, from ownership to permission, from privacy to surveillance, and from trust in each other to absolute trust in a faceless system. And that system, no matter how flawless it seems, is ultimately built on sand. Because the moment the power goes out, so does your freedom. They told us the cashless world would be cleaner, faster, smarter. No germs, no theft, no clutter, just seamless efficiency. They never told us the cost. Because when everything becomes digital, everything becomes traceable. Every purchase, every transaction, every habit, recorded, stored, and analyzed. The coffee you drink, the route you take, the book you buy, each one builds a profile more intimate than your own reflection. And in the name of security, that data is traded like gold. Before we dive deeper, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Like, share, and watch till the end, because what comes next might just change the way you see the future. Ready? Let's pull back the curtain. In a world without cash, money becomes data, and data is power. Whoever controls it, controls you. The government says it's about preventing crime. The banks say it's about innovation. The corporations say it's about convenience. But underneath that glossy marketing, something darker stirs. A system that doesn't just process your transactions, it predicts them. Algorithms learn what makes you tick. They know when you're most likely to spend, when you're most likely to panic, when you're most likely to obey. And the digital economy, armed with that knowledge, stops being neutral. It becomes a form of psychological warfare. You think you're choosing what to buy, but the choice was made for you long before you opened your app. The ad that appeared wasn't random, the notification wasn't accidental. The special offer was timed to hit the exact moment your willpower was weakest. It's not a marketplace anymore. It's a mind space, engineered for manipulation. And without cash, you can't opt out. You can't go offline. Every transaction feeds the machine that studies you, sells you, and shapes you. Now imagine what happens when that machine gets smarter. Artificial intelligence begins to run the economy. Not just predicting demand, but creating it. Not just managing resources, but assigning them. AI doesn't care about fairness or freedom. It cares about optimization. And in a cashless world, optimization means control. If the system decides your spending habits are inefficient, it can restrict your access. If your carbon footprint is too high, your transactions could be declined. If your behavior doesn't align with the algorithm's social score, You could find yourself digitally exiled. No money, no movement, no life outside the grid. That's not science fiction. It's already unfolding. Pilot programs for programmable currencies are being tested across the world. Digital wallets that can limit what you buy for sustainability. Centralized systems that track spending for security. And while these ideas sound responsible on the surface, they build a future where your freedom depends on compliance. You don't own your wealth. The system lends it to you as long as you play by its rules. It's not theft. It's permission denied. But here's the twist. For many, it will feel normal. People will adapt, trade convenience for control, and call it progress. And those who question it, they'll be dismissed as paranoid, as relics of a past that no longer exists. Because when every part of life is connected, disconnected voices are labeled as dangerous. Freedom won't disappear overnight. It will fade, replaced by comfort, speed, and the illusion of safety. And that's the true genius of the cashless world. It doesn't enslave through fear. It enslaves through convenience. It makes obedience effortless. It makes control invisible. Now close your eyes and imagine it. A world where no one touches money, where beggars scan QR codes, where children grow up thinking paper bills were myths, where rebellion isn't punished by law, but by code. You break a rule and your account freezes. You speak out and your transaction is flagged. You resist and the system doesn't arrest you. It erases you. No cash, no trace, no life beyond the network. That's the endgame of perfection. A system so efficient it eliminates what makes us human. Our unpredictability, privacy, chaos, and freedom. But here's the part they can't control. Not yet. Awareness. The moment you see the pattern, you can break it. You can choose when to connect and when to step back. You can choose what you feed the system and what you protect. Because in a world run by data, your attention is the last form of currency you truly own. And if enough people wake up, if enough people start asking the right questions, the illusion begins to crack. Because every empire of control depends on belief. And belief, once broken, can't be repaired. So next time you tap to pay, pause. Think about what's really being traded. Not money, but power. Not convenience, but consent. Because the truth is hauntingly simple. If cash disappears tomorrow, freedom disappears with it. And the real question isn't what if, it's when. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video to spread awareness. See you next time.